Alright everyone, so with the ×2 rates event going on for Void Shards, I thought it would be a great opportunity to tell you guys about some Void Epics that if you do come across them, you are absolutely going to want to 6-star them and take them to level 60. Now Void Champions are some of the strongest in the game and Void Epics are no exception. Now is the best time to summon with a 16% chance of actually coming across an Epic, and with a pretty good amount of very good Void Epics in the game, these are absolutely going to be champions you're going to be on the lookout for. So let's get into it, and even if you guys are watching this video after the Void Summoning event is over, there will be more in the future, and if you ever come across these champions, they should absolutely go towards the top of your priority list. So let's start off with a champion that I have actually never discussed before in any of my videos talking about champions, and he is absolutely amazing. So we are going to go to the Sacred Order, and we are going to talk about this guy right here, who of course I don't have him because he is extremely good, one of the best epics in the game, and he is a Void Epic, and that is Lightsworn. Now his skill kit only has 3 skills right here, but when you take a look at them, you guys will realize how absolutely insane this guy is. So his first skill attacks one enemy 3 times, decreases the target's turn meter by 10%. Also importantly, this is a defense-based champion, and defense-based champions out of the different stat types, defense, HP, and attack, they're going to be the best one, then probably HP, and finally in last place will be attack. So he's going to not only do a lot of damage, but he's going to be very tanky as well. Second skill, attacks one enemy, places a 50% decreased attack debuff and a 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns, and you can get that down to a 3-turn cooldown. So not only does he place an absolutely invaluable decreased attack debuff, but it also comes along with a decreased speed debuff as well, both on the same skill, and it gets even better when you take a look at his final skill right here. Places a 60% increased defense buff and a revive on death buff on all allies for 2 turns, which you can get down to a 4-turn cooldown. Wow, this guy's skill kit is absolutely incredible. I mean, easily one of the best skill kits that you will find on any champions, and that includes legendaries. He's got some insanely invaluable utility here and debuffs, decreased attack, decreased speed, both on the same skill, and then to top it off, he also has the strong version of increased defense on a buff with this revive on death, and his auto attack, his just regular plain old skill, is pretty darn good as well, with a decreases the target's turn meter kind of attached onto it as well. All this on a defensive based champion. Wow, this guy is a must build to 60 if you come across him. He's going to be probably towards the top of a lot of people's tier list just because of how strong he is. So that's number 1 on the list. Now moving on to number 2. This is another champion that I do not believe that I have really discussed. Maybe I briefly mentioned her once, but I definitely have not talked about her that much, and that is going to be, of course, another Void Epic that I do not have. She is incredibly strong, very versatile champion with a great aura, and that is going to be Battle Sage. So her first skill here is an AoE, which is great, which means she's going to be, decent in a lot of areas of the game where single target champions might not be as good at, especially things like dungeon runs. I know it seems crazy, but an area of effect is going to be great for those first couple of waves of trash enemies before you get to the boss. If all you have are single attackers, those couple waves are going to take a lot longer to clear, and you actually spend a lot of time in dungeons just clearing out those trash waves rather than the actual boss fight itself. So definitely more practical uses rather than just, being able to farm the campaign. You also have to realize that AoEs are great for late game dungeons as well. Alright, next up, we have removes all debuffs on all allies, then places a 50% increased attack buff on all allies for 2 turns. So you have a cleanse, which is utility, and you also have the strong version of increased attack on your full team, which you can lower down to a 3-turn cooldown. And her third skill right here places a revive on death buff on a target ally for 3 turns. The ally will instantly revive if killed. Not terrible, but this is not really the strong point of her skill kit. But when you take a look at her aura, she also has a 19% speed aura in all battles as well, which is great, not only for things like the arena, but plenty of other aspects of the game. Very difficult. I know I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that I think auras are probably, especially speed auras, one of the more difficult things to find in rare champions and even in epic champions. There are obviously still a decent amount of them out there, but having such a versatile, solid speed aura on her is absolutely fantastic. That with her second ability right here, the cleanse, the increased attack, and a very solid area of effect auto attack. She's a very solid champion, and if I got her, definitely she would be going to the top of my priority list for champions to 6-star and take to 60. So not a bad consideration. Alright, next up is the champion that I have talked about before, and she is absolutely amazing. I cannot make a video like this without briefly mentioning her, even though I know I've mentioned her before. That is Madame Cerise, one of the newer Halloween-themed epics. She is phenomenal. So her first ability right here has a lot of stuff on it. Attacks on enemy, places a fear, has a 20% chance anyway. Increases if they're under debuffs up to 45%. And then you've got her second ability here, attacks all enemies, has a 40% chance of stealing a random buff, places block debuffs on all allies. If a buff is stolen, places True Fear for 1 turn on enemies who have buffs stolen. And it really is her third ability right here that makes her phenomenal. Removes all buffs from enemies, places a 50% decreased attack debuff and a 60% decreased defense debuff on all enemies for 3 turns. And you can lower the cooldown on that twice, down to a 4-turn cooldown. This skill is insane. One of the best skills in the game, period, that you will find on any champion, let alone an epic champion. And, you know, the other skills that she has are just kind of a bit extra. She's going to be more support-based as well, so you're not really going to be building her for crazy damage. So she should hopefully stay alive for a very long time in your battles to be able to place this debuff frequently. And just absolutely a fantastic epic champion. Definitely, again, like Lightsworn, going to be at the top of a lot of people's tier lists. She also has this passive here, places a shield buff on this champion equal to 10% of their max HP at the start of each turn. When attacked while under a shield buff, has a 35% chance of placing a fear debuff on the attacker for 1 turn. Alright, so next up on the list is a champion that, again, I don't think I've actually mentioned that much, and she is absolutely phenomenal, and that is going to be Padma. Alright, so taking a look at her skill kit. Attacks 1 enemy 2 times. If this attack is critical, which you could end up building her with gear to easily get to 100% crit chance, so you should have no problem activating that. Has an 85% chance, which you can increase the skill books to 100% of placing a 50% decreased attack debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. So the decreased attack is on all enemies. Very important. It's based on both defense and attack. And it's on her auto, so it doesn't have a cooldown. Very, very strong auto attack right there. Or skill 1, whatever you want to call it, without the cooldown. Second ability, attacks all enemies, has a 35% chance of placing a decreased accuracy debuff for 2 turns, based on both attack and defense. And her third skill, attacks one enemy, removes all buffs from the target, and places them on this champion. Very, very strong skill kit. She's been known as one of the best Void epics in the game for a very, very long time, and absolutely going to be worth 6-starring and taking to level 60. She's been out for a while, and many people still use them in their lineups and their teams to this day, so very strong consideration. Next up on the list, we're going to go to the Knights Revenant here and talk about Skullcrown. So Skullcrown is another champion that I have not, unfortunately, been able to get. And she is amazing. Another one of those AoE champions that offers a lot more to the table besides just AoE. Very similar to Battle Sage. Attacks all enemies. Places an extra hit if the target has more than 50% HP. So this is going to be fantastic in so many different aspects of the game, including PvP. But we'll get later into her skill kit. You guys will see why she's really good for PvP for all sorts of other reasons. Second ability, also an AoE. Attacks all enemies, and it places that 25%, which is the strong version, the weak one is 15%, of weaken for 2 turns. You can get this down to a 3-turn cooldown. You could buff that chance from 50% up to actually, what is that, 70, 80% with the mastery. So very, very strong AoE skill. Very good. I mean, this is just, these 2 skills alone are absolutely insane, and that's not even getting to the other parts of this champion skill kit. Places an unkillable buff on this champion for 1 turn every time their HP drops below 20%. This is so annoying in Arena. I'm sure you guys have faced Skullcrown before, and you guys know how frustrating it can be. Even if you can beat her, whenever this activates, it's still annoying because it makes the battle last longer, and it's a hassle. And this ability right here is if Sinesha is on the same team, revives her with 30% HP, can get that down to a 6-turn cooldown. Now, she also has the strong 23% speed aura in Arena, which is great. So you had Battle Sage, which had the slightly weaker speed aura, but that was in all aspects of the game. This aura is phenomenal for Arena, and every point of speed can make the difference between winning or losing. So very strong champion you're absolutely going to want to 6-star and take to 60 if you get her. All right, next up on the list is we're going to go to the Knights Revenant here and talk about, let's see here, Golden Reaper. Now, Golden Reaper is a very strong champion. I think she's maybe a little bit underrated. I know she is definitely going to be one of the best for the Knights Revenant faction crypt, but if you take a look at some of her skills, you guys will see why she's absolutely going to be a champion, easily worth 6-starring and taking to 60. So you have her auto, attacks one enemy, has a 30% chance of decreasing the cooldown of a random ally's skills, okay. Then you have her second ability here, attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance, which you can boost quite a bit with skill books and the mastery. So I think you can get it up to 80% again. Of placing the 50% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns, decreases the turn meter of each target by 20% if they are not under a decrease attack debuff. Okay, very solid. Area of effect with that strong version of decreased attack, which is a very valuable debuff to have in the mid and late game. But now you have our third skill right here, and this skill is absolutely incredible, phenomenal skill that you don't really find with a combination of a very strong AoE debuff like this on many champions. Places a 30% increased speed buff on all allies for 2 turns and boosts their turn meter by 20%. So you're looking at something very similar to Apothecary, but I believe this one is, it might be a little bit stronger. You also have the combination of it with the decreased attack. So obviously Apothecary, one of the best rares in the game, but if you don't need somebody for the heal specifically, if you want to get a very similar type of speed buff and turn meter fill with a champion that also fills that role of decreasing attack, Golden Reaper is going to be your go-to right here. So definitely going to be in my list of champions, easily worth considering taking to 6-star and 60. And now we can move on to the Dark Elves. So I'm going to talk about Syle, another champion that is very strong, and unfortunately I have not gotten her. Notice the theme though, that unfortunately, even though I have many epic champions that are not Void, Voids are a whole different struggle on their own. That's why these ×2 summon events for Voids are absolutely awesome. Attacks all enemies. So there we go with another basic area of effect, going to be not just useful for the campaign, but also late game dungeons. Going to help you clear through that stuff a lot quicker in those early trash waves. You have her second ability, which is also an AoE, attacks all enemies, has an 80% chance of placing a 50% decrease accuracy debuff for 2 turns. Which you can boost all the way up to 100% without even needing that mastery right there. Now, decreased accuracy is a nice debuff. In my opinion, not quite as high on the priority list as decreased attack and defense, but it's still a good debuff to have. And if you can have all 3 of them, that's even better. So, and her third skill right here places a 30% decreased speed debuff on all enemies for 2 turns and decreases the turn meter of all enemies by 40%. That is an absolutely insane skill, very valuable. It's kind of like the opposite version of that last skill that we just saw on Golden Reaper. Instead of a speed buff and a turn meter fill, we now have a speed debuff and it decreases the turn meter of all enemies. But this one is not 20%, it decreases the turn meter of all enemies by 40%. And as you can see from skill books, you can lower the cooldown down from 6 turns down to 4. So, and of course, you have that speed aura in faction crypts. Unfortunately, not quite as good as Skullcrowns or Battle Sages, where you can use it in the arena or anywhere, but it's still something right there. And absolutely, with the 2 strong area of effects, a solid debuff, and this amazing kind of the opposite version of that Apothecary Golden Reaper skill, absolutely a champion worth taking to 6 stars and level 60. So, anyway, that is just a short list right there. There are plenty of others. A really big theme among Void champions and Void epics in general is a lot of them are very, very strong. So this is a great time to summon if you guys haven't already. Even if you guys are watching this outside of a Void event, always save up your shards if you can, and keep an eye on some of those phenomenal Void epics. So I always put as a disclaimer at the end of these types of videos, there are of course plenty of other champions that I would have easily thrown into this list if I had the time to do so. I know I had a couple of runner-ups like Maneater, but they're more specific for certain parts of the game, like Clan Boss, so, you know, there could definitely be part 2, part 3 coming in the future, but this is just a short list right here of some of the highlights and the top Void epics to take to 6-star and 60. With that being said, thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. More videos should be popping up now, and, you know, if you want to help out, toss a quick like and subscribe to the channel. Greatly appreciate it.